Welcome to your Joyful Riches podcast, where you gain precious tips and tools for creating your beautiful life and thriving, even if you are facing challenges. This podcast is delivered alongside the International Childhood Cancer Charity, where our mission is to empower, in addition to emotionally heal and physically heal disadvantaged children globally, one child at a time. And for this week, we are so honored and so thrilled to have Jen with us. Welcome, Jen. Would you care to share with us what is it that you do?
Hello, Brigitte. Well, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. I think you're doing such important work, and I feel very honored to be a small part of not what you do, but to be included in this podcast. So I am an energy healer. I'm an intuitive energy healer. I work with people all around the world to release physical, mental, and emotional illness by releasing the energetic blocks that are causing and contributing to those.
Oh wow, that is amazing. That is quite something is to release the energetic block, and you say to help with physical, emotional, and mental. So it's not just emotional or a spiritual thing, but also help physically. That is super awesome, and it's also, I might say, it's also not the most common occupations out there. You hear a lot of doctors and nurses, and definitely very grateful for all of them. But did you grow up kind of saying, you know what, I'm going to be an intuitive energy healer, or is that a journey that brings you here?
Thanks. That's a lovely question. And I loved how you said that because I think you're quite right. It's not your average profession. I I would never, if you had said to me 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, this is what you would be doing, I would have laughed at you because it was not part of my world plan. It was not part of anything that I'd ever been exposed to. And the reason that I came to this place is because I'm an adopted kid. And I was adopted into a wonderful, loving family. But I grew up with very poor self-esteem all of my life because I believed that my mother didn't want me and she got rid of me. Of course, as I became older, I realized that the truth was much more likely to be something that she wanted me, but she couldn't keep me. But unfortunately, I wrote a message on my subconscious mind at a very young age about not being good enough. And when I got to about 55, I realized I didn't like myself that much. I realized I didn't like my outcomes. I realized I didn't like how I presented to the world. I felt that things were hard. A lot of things were hard for me. And I didn't like who I was, but I didn't know what to do about it. And once I recognized that, people appeared in my life and doors started opening. And that one of the doors that opened was a financial consultant, a financial advisor was speaking to me, and he gave me the details of an energy healer, which was very unexpected to be working with a financial advisor who said, by the way, I go to an energy healer and would you like her details? So I was quite astonished, showing that one should never make assumptions. And I went to the energy healer and she worked with me. And the changes that she facilitated for me were so astonishing that I decided I wanted to be able to do more work and I wanted to do it on myself. So working in parallel with her as she was helping me, I read the book. I read a book called The Emotion Code by Bradley Nelson, Dr. Bradley Nelson. And it was very inspirational and I recognized myself. What Dr. Nelson says is that we have big feelings. We don't know what to do with them. So we push them down and we suppress them. And this leads to undesirable outcomes in our lives. Things like I could never make money. I had very low self-esteem. I just didn't like myself very much. I also had recurring discomfort in my hip. I had recurring discomfort in one of my legs, And as I started working more and more with myself, these things disappeared. And the more I worked with myself, the more I wanted to work with others. And then I wanted to work with the world. I wanted to help the whole world, of course. And because of that, I started a business in energy healing, and I work with people all around the world to help them with physical, emotional, and as you say, physical issues. How odd, very strange that you can work with someone on the other side of the world remotely and you can help them with their back pain. I mean, that is really astonishing, and I get that. I completely resonate with that.
That is wonderful. And I love that you mentioned that because sometimes people think physical thing is truly just physical, but a lot of time being a grief coach, a grief specialist, I learned over the 25 plus years I'm doing this that yes, your emotions and as you said, your energy, but for at least your emotions, in my experience, it definitely influence your physical body. We know that, like I would have people come with certain causes of grief, and they don't talk about their physical conditions from the get-go because it's kind of like in the background and it's not in the forefront of their mind when they're speaking with me at the beginning. And then as we work together after like usually within a couple sessions, they're like, oh, and by the way, I have this and I'm feeling that and in the body. And it's like you can even see that one cause of grief usually shows up over here and this other cause over here, and it's like, wow, it's really interesting. But yes, it's definitely how our emotions can influence our physical feelings. And so I gathered from what you said, you're able to do this remotely across the world, everywhere in the world. They don't have to come and see you in person.
No, they don't have to come and see me in person. I do it all around the world remotely. I do have some people come who live in my neighborhood, but not very many, because it's so much easier not to. It's much easier to sit in your pajamas at home on the other end of a Zoom camera than it is to get in your car and drive to me or catch a bus. So I do it in person, but not very much.
So that is wonderful. And with what you do with the energy healing and the releasing energy block, can you give an example? Can you give an example or perhaps explain more to people who says, so what exactly you mean by energy block if I have diabetes, or if I have like you say hip pain or something like that?
Yes, I write case studies all the time about my clients' successes, and I put them on my website. And one of my favorite ones, well, there's a couple of favorite ones, but I'll choose one. One of my favorite ones is a client who I was working with in lockdown, and we had a session, and it was almost as an afterthought. She said, and it's so interesting what you've just said, Brigitte, about grief and about the physical manifestation, because we were working with her on, and to be honest, I can't remember what it was, but almost as an afterthought, she said, oh, and by the way, my back is killing me. My back pain it's really bothering me. So we did a session, and we finished the session and said goodbye, and oh, how lovely to see you. And it was so great working with you. And then the next day, she sent me a WhatsApp message. And in her message, she said, Jen, it was like when I was in the session with you, it was like a big hand came down and took the pain out of my back. And I didn't say anything to you because I thought it was so unlikely. I thought I must be imagining it. But I've woken up this morning with no back pain for the first time in 7 years. And it stayed that way. I mean, she's still a client of mine now. She's in my healing circle. I work with her every week. And she still doesn't have the back pain. And what we released energetically. So when I was working with her, like we are now on opposite sides of the camera, I asked her higher self and her subconscious self, what can I release from you in order to help you? And I was directed to a lot of old emotional baggage, which we call trapped emotions. And trapped emotions are those feelings that we don't know how to process. So we might experience them as a result of divorce or as a result of some sort of trauma, as you say, grief. If we lose someone, we build up that trauma of grief and we don't know how to cope with it. So we just hold on to it in our tissues and organs. And I released a lot of energy from her trapped emotions like rejection, discouragement, crying, hatred, resentment, bitterness, grief, anger, fear. And we released these energetically. So her subconscious mind showed me that she wanted to let go of that emotion. And then I facilitated the release because, as my belief is completely, that I am just the facilitator. This is sent to me by a higher power, and this is my gift to facilitate healing for people. So we released a whole lot of emotions from her. And then she also had at the bottom of her spine, where her root chakra is situated, she had an imbalance in her root chakra. And the root chakra is an energy wheel. We have 7 main chakras in our bodies along our spines, except for the crown chakra and the brow, which are not on the spine. And this was an energy wheel that was out of balance, so I balanced that. And then she had a problem in her hip, actually in her pelvis. And we released that hip pain. And afterwards, when she sent me this message about someone came in and took the pain away from my back, we realized that the pain, in fact, was referred pain. So she had, because what we released was in her hip, and what she had was she called back pain. But as we know, with pain, very often if you have pain in one part of your body, you transfer it and you refer it to another part of your body. So you might have a sore right leg, but then you start limping on your left leg as well because you're compensating for the right leg. So that's the work I do. That's essentially what I do, is I release the energetic causes that are supporting the illness or the imbalance or the state of unwellness.
Wow. And did you say you did that in one session or within couple sessions? So in other words, they don't have to, sometimes people worry, oh, how many times do I have to do this? And I'm going to be stuck with them for forever or something like that.
This was one session, but I was working. It's hard for me to say how many sessions actually it was, because there was one session where that happened. But I had done work with her previously. Now, for all I know, we might have been releasing that up until that point. Because what I say about energy healing, and I don't know if you find this with grief, but I think you probably do, is that it is a process. So you've laid down these issues, you've laid down the grief, you've laid down the pain, you've laid down the fibromyalgia, you've laid down the back pain, you've laid down the lack of confidence, you've laid down the post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not a one magic one hit wonder. It's generally more than one session. How many sessions? How long is your piece of string? It's so hard for us to know. I find that 5 or 6 sessions should definitely shift something for you, and you might have a fabulous result in one session, as she did. But it's not a scientific thing. You can't judge it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. That's wonderful. And yes, as you say, we have a saying for the grief specialist that grief is cumulative and cumulatively destructive, and it's like layers of onion. And with me, some people come with what I call acute grief. So it's like one major loss, and so that is one thing. But those who come with chronic grief, definitely you start the work and then it's kind of helping them process it, and even those with acute grief, and then they just like hit that breakthrough. And so, which is very beautiful for everybody to experience that. And so with what you do, with your understanding about energy and healing, do you have a couple tips for people as before they are able to, let's say if they're not able to connect with you, or before they're able to connect with you, and they're facing challenges? Perhaps it's a chronic illness, perhaps it's a different kind of challenge, relationship, finance, any challenges. Do you have some tips for people in navigating life, so to say?
Yes, thank you. I do. I have two tips, and I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll explain. I'll kind of expand a little. So one tip is read the book The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson, because I believe that a lot of people can do what he does. A lot of people can do the basics. A lot of people can do the foundational stuff. It's exactly where I started. I read the book and then I started practicing on myself and I started releasing those trapped emotions. So that is one thing you can do, and I would highly recommend that. And another thing you can do is EFT tapping. And EFT tapping is it's done in many cultures. And what we do when we tap is we use the fingers of one hand to tap on what they call acupressure points on the body. And the acupressure points are points that are used by along the meridians, and the meridians are rivers of energy in our bodies, like veins. They don't carry blood, they carry energy, life force, chi, prana, depending on which culture you are talking about. And we have blocks in the energy we carry in our beings. And by tapping on the acupressure points, what happens is we release those blocks. And very often people who do tapping experience great release of grief. So they might sob, they might absolutely sob, and they might also yawn a lot. And both of those are indicative of energy, negative energy releasing from the body. And both of those, the emotion code and EFT tapping, I would say are both fabulous self-help tools that people can use in order to start processing their financial, whatever the anxiety behind their finances or the anxiety behind their relationship issues or their feelings of vulnerability about what's going on in their life. Definitely those can help, I believe, in my experience.
So the EFT and the emotion code by Dr. Nelson's, and the EFT is something that people can do. Do you teach that, or is that something that do you know? Do you have a reliable resource for people to that you can refer to, or perhaps you teach that or help people with that?
I do teach that. I run tapping groups on Saturdays about every 6 weeks. And the tapping topics are things like we forgive, because forgiveness is huge. It's things like, even though I've been a failure before, there's nothing stopping me from being successful. So we have a theme. We have a theme, which is a sort of a common human theme. Many millions of us have these issues, and the themes are chosen to address specific issues. So I do that tapping every 6 weeks. We do it on Zoom. I do it with groups of people. If you wanted to do it by yourself, you could resource. There's many resources on the internet which you could just type in EFT tapping, and there'd be lots of different resources that would come up where you could have a go and do it yourself. Yeah.
That is perfect. So how do people learn about this, learn more about this group? How do people connect with you?
People connect with me, I suppose, on my social media. They connect through my website. I have a website. I'm always talking on social media about my offerings and kind of healing programs and group memberships that I have available. And on my website, I suppose it's the most logical thing. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all of those platforms. And I'm on YouTube as well.
Oh, wow, wonderful. What is your website?
My website is www.jenedwards.com, and that's Jen with a G because my name is Genevieve.
And that's www.jenedwards.com. Edwards has S in it.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Somebody listening to this but not watching it, that's Jen Edwards. That's GEN Edwards with an S .com. That is wonderful. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your your wisdom. As we complete our conversations today, do you have one final message for our audience?
Thank you. I do. And I think my final message would be the thing is my lived experience. And my lived experience is that it's possible to heal. I believe completely. I realize I don't want to put out the message that, for example, you can heal from anything. And I realize that there are things you can't heal from. But I'm talking about emotional healing. I'm talking about healing from, there are physical issues that we can heal from, and emotional issues and mental issues. I believe that where there's life, there's hope. And I think that if you have something that you're struggling with, I would love to just say, please take hope and know that healing is possible. And there are always avenues to explore to heal.
That is beautiful. It's possible to heal, and has to just keep your hope up and continue looking, and you will receive the light, the correct guidance. Sometimes in a surprise way, like you say, from a financial person. You're like, who would knew that? And so that is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and tips and time with us. And thank you so much, Jen. And for you, my friend, who are listening to this, please share this with your friends and families, because they too would want to be able to heal, and to thrive even better. And please share your gold nuggets, 1 or 2 gold nuggets, in the comment below, so we can continue learning from each other. And this is Dr. BirgitteTan, your host with the International Childhood Cancer Charity and your grief specialist. I care about you very, very much, and I look forward to see you again very